Good afternoon from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services National Conservation Training Center in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. My name is Ashley Fortune, and I would like to welcome you to a webinar series that is held in partnership with the U.S. Geological Survey. The series is part of the Landscape Conservation Cooperatives and Partners Project Outreach Strategy. So let's get started. Sean?
Thank you, Ashley. This is Sean Finn, Science Coordinator for the Great Northern Landscape Conservation Cooperative, and one of the many PIs associated with the Integrated Data Management Network, a project that was funded by the LCC network and is nearing completion here. You will be viewing the fifth of 6 webinars that make up part of the series that will be delivered over the summer. Today's webinar will focus on the project tracking element of the project. But first, a little background on the Integrated Data Management Network, or IDMN. The IDMN project looked at ways to bring coherence to a rather fractionated information management landscape. Specifically, the project tried to address ways LCC partners dealt with the basic building blocks of data management, building and sharing science products with partners, securely storing those data for the long term, and evaluating ways to get those outputs to cooperators and eventually the public. Over the course of the 2.5 years of the IDMN project, the scope was expanded to address ways to track projects, which we'll be focusing on today, that sponsored some of these scientific outputs, and as well as build communication products and tools to help community members work together. These efforts always kept other landscape-level efforts in mind, especially, but not only, the National Climate Change and Wildlife Science Center's network of climate science centers. The IDMN project assembled 6 teams of information management, natural resource, and communication specialists to evaluate and test different approaches. There are over 20 partner agencies that were associated with the IDMN project, representing no less than 9 LCCs and over 50 investigators who worked on this 2-year project. From this effort, the various work teams defined ways different LCCs and other landscape-level projects could not just coexist, but constructively work together. We recognize that these issues of interoperability are not going to be solved at any one point in time. So we eventually see that these teams will evolve into topic-specific communities of practice that jointly guide future integration pathways for LCCs and their partners. And we'll elaborate on this community of practice approach a little bit in on the next webinar, which is scheduled for August 28th. So we originally set out to facilitate efficient data sharing and technical communication among the broadest possible partnership. These integration pathways we felt should focus on data sharing options and fostering data integration, including sharing, facilitating use of new integration options, collaborating on guidance documentation, and fostering hardware and software solutions for the partnerships, including the LCCs and the CSCs. We identified a series of deliverables at the outset and have worked over the course of the project to get these deliverables into the hands of all of our partners. This webinar series is part of the early rollout of these deliverables. The IDMN project generated a variety of products, including metadata and data standards to help groups work together in specific domains, tools that let projects take advantage of partner capabilities and collaboration concepts, and eventually a complete document that we called the Roadmap to Interoperability. We also highlight the integration of 2 sets of data resources among the network. One of them is a very specific integration pathway among LC-MAP ScienceBase, which hopefully many people are familiar with, but if you're not, by reviewing some of the earlier webinars that we've presented, you can get familiar with ScienceBase, and Databasin, which is in use by many of the LCCs. And the purpose of that integration was twofold. One was to develop that very specific integration pathway among ScienceBase and Databasin. And the second was to understand the ways and techniques and strategies to develop integration pathways for multiple data resources. So it's that learn by doing process. Secondly, we spent a lot of our effort working on a project tracking extension, enabling and extending the needs assessment and the conceptual and practical applications of project tracking systems to the LCC network. That will be the focus of today's webinar. But briefly, we also recognize that these, advanced information interoperability and exchange networks will only function if they're well documented with user guides. And part of what the products of the IDMN was a series of practical user guides to help us use these tools effectively. So as I said, this is the 5th of 6 webinars. Today we will be hearing about project tracking from Deanne DiPietro, who's with the California LCC, Matt Heller, who's with the Great Northern LCC, and Lei Ann Wilson, who works with the USGS Fort Collins Science Center. In 2 weeks from today, we will have the final presentation of this webinar series entitled Next Generation Data Integration Challenges, where we'll talk a little bit about how we transition from a project level approach as exemplified by the IDMN to a community of practice, so that as IT technology and data exchange advances continue, that we as a network of LCCs can track that and continue to be at the cutting edge of data interoperability. So I hope you join us next week, but today and right now I'd like to introduce Deanne DiPietro. And thank you for joining us and telling us about the project tracking project, Deanne.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so as Sean said, I will be presenting together with Matt Heller and Lei Ann Wilson today on the project tracking effort of the Integrated Data Management Network. And we're representing the work of a larger team, and here are those people who've been working together for the last year and a half or so on this effort and have really gotten to know each other even though we've never met. And here we all are. There's Matt on the left. Emily Fort has been integral with the National Climate Change and Wildlife Science Center. There's Lei Ann, and Tim Kern is also with Fort Collins Science Center. My partner, Jahai Stewart with the California LCC, Josh Bradley at the Arctic LCC, and there I am in the lower right. So here's our outline for our talk today. We're going to tell you about what we've done and how we've gotten there, starting with the goal of the IDMN project tracking task. We'll tell you about the challenge and our approach to meet that challenge. I'm going to go over some previous work that we have benchmarked from called the Simple National Project Catalog. We'll show you the accomplishments of the IDMN effort, the 2 phases, the project metadata exchange and aggregation part of the effort, and the piece that we've done to support LCCs in their adoption of project tracking software, and wrap up with recommendations for moving forward. So the goal, as given to us by the IDMN project tracking task, is to support cataloging and tracking of LCC-funded projects and improve the integration of project information for use across the LCC network. So that presents us with a challenge. There are 22 LCCs, and they are all doing things their own way, in their own styles. They have different approaches and different levels of technical capacity. And so we've got quite a diversity out there among the LCC network. And then there's, on the other side of the equation here, we need to have one view across all of the LCC's projects. And that means having some kind of a standard view across them all. We're also trying to serve multiple needs with this effort. At the national level, the national folks need to be able to analyze what the whole LCC network is doing in terms of their research projects that they've funded, and see what kinds of different efforts they are and with what partners we're doing them. The public also needs to be able to discover LCC projects and find what's relevant to their own work. And at the LCC level, the individual LCCs need to be able to manage the projects from start to finish, which means having a lot more detailed information and linkages from that information into the materials that are associated with the project, including proposals and deliverables and contracts. At the national level, we have been presented with a list of things they want to know, and here's some of those things. They need to be able to see all the projects in one place, obviously, and link from there to more detailed information at the individual LCCs and see what we're doing in terms of types of deliverables, who we're serving as far as end users, funding by category, the kinds of matches, and et cetera, a number of projects that are co-funded and completed, and even in what's being done in congressional districts. And at the upper right is a pie chart made by Ben Thatcher and folks to show how many projects are being done in different categories. So that indicates the need for two kinds of project information. Project cataloging, as we call it, and we'll use this terminology throughout the talk and in our report, that is a subset of the project information that is the basic standardized information about the project, like title and abstract and contact, and links to more detail information. And project tracking, which is what happens in the individual LCCs, is that and more. It's every detail about the project, and that really is different in different LCCs, but typically it expands on the project catalog subset with much more information about all of those products. So we decided on a dual approach for this work, and the two parts of that approach are to develop a unified project catalog, which means that we needed to build a data exchange and aggregation system based on standards and get all that information into one database. And the other side of the work we've done has been to help the LCCs to choose between all the options. And they will want to apply their own criteria and have their freedom to choose between these diverse project tracking software options. But what they do needs to be able to support national participation. So that means syncing up with the project catalog. So now I'm going to give you a little background about some previous work that we used when we got started. In spring 2013, the national office contracted to get a start on this work, and Shahai Stewart and I worked on this, and we call it the Simple National Project Catalog. And you'll hear us talking about the Simple National Project Catalog, or the SNPC, and it is what's in place now. And last year, if you are with an LCC, you may remember us calling and talking with you probably multiple times, and you're helping us gather and standardize and assemble all of the project metadata from the 22 LCCs. And working together with the LCCs, we developed a common standard for that data, and the LCCs really helped to check through all those fields. We made sure to include fields that they had and that we considered fields they didn't have, so it was a collaborative effort to come up with that standard. And we worked with each LCC to incorporate that standard and the vocabularies with it into their current methods for managing the data at whatever stage they were in that process. And you can see this catalog now on the National Network web page. If you go to lccnetwork.org, you'll get to their homepage and click on Our Work and go to Projects, and this is on that website. And you can search it and do a little filtering from there. There are 395 projects, some from every LCC. Everybody contributed their projects up to date as of that time, spring of 2013. It has not been updated since then. We're about to do another update, and that will mean that we'll be contacting you, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that will go. But at this time, you can see everything the LCC has been doing across all of the LCCs, and filter by LCC or primary category, or do a full text search. And let's see, I need my pointer. Here I have checked, it's really small, but if you go in there, you can see the project categories, these words we've decided on to categorize all our projects. I have clicked in this case on traditional ecological knowledge, and you can see the projects that are associated with that category. And if there is information on a website, these records link to that more detailed information at the LCC. And then clicking on the title gets you the full record. Here's the standard. This is the set of fields. This is that small subset of cataloging level information about projects that we all decided on. And the red fields have controlled vocabularies, which we also developed together. This is the project catalog in spreadsheet form, which you can download off of that website at the LCC network. And every LCC data manager was given their data back in this standardized form. For some LCCs, that was helpful because they had not really decided on a method yet, or were working with the spreadsheet, and this helped to upgrade it. For others, some of the LCCs were creating their own database or content management system already. In that case, the spreadsheet acted as kind of a common standard and format, and they wrote an export. And we took their comma-separated value file and imported it into the simple national project catalog. Others had spreadsheets or nothing, and then they used our spreadsheet, and we just took it in. And so at the end of the effort, everybody was given back their clean, standardized data. So we were theoretically on the same page at that time, and hopefully still have that information ready or quickly ready for another data call. It's small, I don't expect you to read it, but it's a spreadsheet showing that we, while we were talking with everybody, gathered some information about what people were doing out there, which has been useful in this project tracking effort for the IDMN. Most LCCs were using spreadsheets, but wanting to do something more sophisticated, and some were working with their own database systems, and many, well, some at that time and more already have been working on entering their information into ScienceBase. And now I'm handing it over to Matt.
Thanks, Deanne, for that. The Integrated Data Management Network project tracking team had two options it considered. And first was to develop a solution around a single project tracking application and require all the LCCs to adopt it. The next option it considered was to develop standards of data exchange of project metadata information between the diverse LCC systems they already have, and then in an aggregated database in the end. So we did have some marching orders, we're calling them, that related to the unified project catalog, also known as the aggregation portion of the dual approach that Deanne talked about. The first objective that we had to consider was the develop and design of a data exchange architecture. And when we're talking about architecture, we're talking about system elements such as hardware, software, networking, personnel. Next, we had to address the needs of the national LCC while allowing LCCs to keep their individual LCC project tracking systems. And so we want to provide options for the individual LCCs, including keeping their own project tracking systems. And then finally, we wanted to implement prototypes and refine protocols and provide these reference implementations. As far as protocols, we wanted to define technical procedures, data processes, et cetera, and then reference implementations is we wanted to show what options are already out there that other LCCs are utilizing. This is a generalized architecture diagram that we're seeing of the system here. I'll go left to right here. On the left, we're showing master records, and these are where individual LCCs are editing, and there can be continual use of existing systems, such as the spreadsheet that Deanne just talked about. Maybe the LCCs have their own database with exports to this spreadsheet format, and maybe the individual LCCs have a web interface. There's quite a few different options that could happen, but on the left, again, we have these master records that are being continually edited. And in the middle of the diagram, we're talking about the exchange formats. Right now, the most common method is the spreadsheet output or the CSV output. And then in the future, in the near future, we're going to have also web service output, kind of that more live feed in that in a JSON, we'll call it, format, getting into some technical jargon there. But now, finally on the right, we have that aggregation site where we have the collection of all those LCC project records from over the network. This currently does reside on the lccnetworks.org site that Deanne showed, and that has, again, export options, a web interface. So for all of this, for this architecture we're looking at, there's 4 elements that are needed besides the LCC source data. We need a common metadata standard, and luckily we had all the work that Deanne and Jahai did in that 2013 Simple National Project Catalog effort that we could take most. I think we took most every standard out of there. And then there's also data exchange formats. We already were using the CSV format for that SNPC methodology, but we're also integrating in web service functionality with this JSON formatting. And then another element that we needed to look into was the data exchange protocols. Are we going to have some type of harvest functionality that the aggregate database goes and looks for that data set and pulls it in, or are we going to have it that it's more initiated by the LCC themselves and have upload functions? And finally, then there's the aggregation site, the collection of all these LCC projects throughout the network into one single database. So there were 3 strong candidates for this aggregation site. We had this big decision to make. Where are we going to develop this system? Are we going to expand the Simple National Project existing system? Are we going to utilize ScienceBase, or also known as LCMAP, to house this functionality? Or would we take the Arctic Project Tracker, the robust project tracking system, and integrate multiple LCC data into it as the powerful aggregator? Now, with this, the prototype aggregator was not required to be the same as the final long-term production solution. But the team felt that there was great advantage of implementing this prototype with the candidate production site that we're deciding on, so we could really kick the tires and test drive this system. So ScienceBase ended up emerging as this leading candidate for the long-term home of the project aggregation database. So the great things about ScienceBase are, one, that it already has widespread acceptance among the LCCs as a common platform. It's very interoperable. LCCs are already using it for various different applications and uses. And then ScienceBase, they're willing to commit staff time to this effort, so that's obviously a great big plus there. And then there's the opportunity to integrate with the other ScienceBase services, whether that's the RFP manager, or there's great robust spatial capabilities. So another very big added bonus. And there's continual development within ScienceBase of new modules all the time. And then we did recognize that all of us recognize there are challenges of modifying the existing system that serves multiple purposes, but all the parties were in agreement that it's well worth it. Here's the prototype architecture, the interim arrangement we're calling it. I'm not going to go into great detail about different, formatting or not, or whatnot, but this is very similar to that first diagram I showed. On the left, we have the master records where LCCs are doing continual edits, and we're exporting it to a format that can be brought into that middle portion of the diagram, the LCC networks.org or the Simple National Project Catalog site. So in this interim arrangement, we're still using that lccnetworks.org. We're in that the new data call that's coming out that Deanne mentioned. That's going to be populated. It's going to be accessible by the public. But at the same time, we're going to have export functions not only to a spreadsheet, but to ScienceBase too, through a web service technology that will integrate lccnetwork.org to ScienceBase for this transitional period. So the final prototype architecture will be very similar to the last diagram, but minus the web portion or the LCC projects, the lccnetworks.org portion of it. lccnetworks.org won't go away, but the aggregate database of project information will. And all that functionality will then be built into ScienceBase. So ScienceBase will provide all the services that the Simple National Project Catalog featured, and then there'll be more to come, more services to come too. So with that, I'm going to pass the presentation ball to Lei Ann.
Thanks, Matt. So introducing ScienceBase. What is ScienceBase? So as many of you know from a previous I think it was the first webinar, ScienceBase is a data catalog and collaborative data management platform that has project cataloging capabilities. ScienceBase can be used to catalog project metadata, including your project descriptions, your abstract information, your contact information, your start dates and end dates. You can even catalog your budget information, all the way down to what type of products you're expecting to be delivered as a result of the project. It is also a central search and discovery application. As Matt mentioned, the long-term goal is to have all the aggregation functions handled in ScienceBase. With that, you'll just have one place to go to be able to search ScienceBase and discover and find all of the LCC projects that are happening across the network. For example, you could go to LCMAP, or otherwise known as ScienceBase, and do a search to find out what LCCs are doing projects on the study area of drought. ScienceBase is also a data repository. Not only can you collect your project metadata in ScienceBase, you can use it to store other project artifacts such as your project proposal, your reports, your quarterly reports, your final reports, including publications, as well as other data products such as geospatial data that we talked in more detail in previous webinars. I think as Matt or Deanne mentioned, ScienceBase is being used by many different communities and organizations for many different purposes. The user interface needs to be accommodating to meet all of these different user requirements. This can make it challenging for those LCC users to create project records using the ScienceBase user interface, making their project records complying with the National Project Catalog standards. But it's not impossible, but you really need to know what you're doing to use the ScienceBase interface. As an alternative, you can use ScienceBase, which is a front-end application, you can use Depth, which is a front-end application to ScienceBase. DEP stands for Data Entry for Project Tracking and Highlighting. This tool was funded by WSC, and it's a more comprehensive, user-friendly online entry form specifically designed for the entry of project metadata information, which makes it much easier to create a project metadata record that complies with the National LCC standard. And another nice functionality that ScienceBase provides is web services. And these web services can be used for facilitating other applications such as DEPs or websites like the NCC WSC project pages that I'll talk about in a little more detail in the presentation. So ScienceBase has a master record source and aggregation site. We're building the functionality that serves both sides of the equation, the LCC master record management and the aggregation of records derived from all sources of the project information from the LCCs. For those LCCs that are using the spreadsheet to manage their records, we can still feed them, as Matt mentioned, using the import process into the aggregated site. We can continue to support the LCCs that are using their own project cataloging systems and import them into the aggregated site. And for those that are already using ScienceBase or DEPs as their master record management system, they're already in the aggregated site, resulting in, once again, one place for users to go and search and discover all of the LCC projects. Where we're at, what's in development, the status of the project site, or the status of the ScienceBase pilot effort. The DEPs tool is currently being evaluated by the IDMN project team. We have added the National LCC project metadata requirements to the data entry form, making it much easier to create a project record that complies with the standard. We also have worked on the batch import of the project records using the JSON-based REST services, and it's currently being tested right now. We're working with the North Pacific. They volunteered to be our guinea pig, and we're in the process of importing their 2013 projects. Hopefully next week we'll get those loaded into the system. Also, the export of data for use in LCC web pages. The Desert LCC is working with the Fort development staff to display their projects that are currently being cataloged in ScienceBase out on their lcc.org website. This will allow them to continue to edit and update their records using ScienceBase or DEPs, and then the changes will be immediately reflected on their website. They don't have to, by doing this, they wouldn't have to go through a developer every time if they wanted to make some kind of minor change to the project metadata record. It's all done in ScienceBase or in DEPs, and all the changes are immediately reflected on their website. So DEPs as a project editing form. Here's a screenshot of what it looks like. It probably doesn't do it good enough justice. But for those LCCs that are planning to use ScienceBase or are currently using ScienceBase as their master project source, they can use DEPs to edit and manage their records. It's pretty easy to use, and once again, it's specifically designed for creating project records only. We have added additional fields to meet the national LCC requirements. You have nice pull-down menus with vocabularies. It flags you and let you know you have missing information, so you can make sure that your project record complies with the standard. We have additional fields that you can collect information on, such as project objectives, what's going to be delivered. You can put in some budget information, let them know the status and start date and end date. So this makes it really easy to create a very very rich project metadata record. Also to note that editing of the records in ScienceBase or in depth is all permission-based. So the LCCs have control over who can actually edit their project metadata record and even who can view their project metadata information. ScienceBase as the aggregator, ScienceBase Depth as the aggregation system. As mentioned earlier, not all LCCs are using ScienceBase for their master project records. For example, the Arctic is using the Arctic Project Tracker, and the Great Northern is using their own version. And we really want to continue to support these different LCCs, but we need to have one place where everybody can go to view all the projects across the network. And eventually, ScienceBase will fill this need. So this is a screenshot. Once again, apologize for the quality of the screenshot. This is a screenshot of what the search screen looks like in depth. The nice thing is you can go in and search. You can select that you want to search the LC map. You can search and find all of the projects within the LCC network, or you can filter down to a specific LCC, such as the Desert LCC. You can do filtered searches. Is it in progress? Is it completed? Or are you looking for a specific PI, and you can search on a PI and find out what projects they're working on behalf of the LCC. So it's a pretty powerful search. And then the nice thing is then here are the search results, and you can sort by all of the different columns. And then you can even export it out to a CSV and pull it into Excel for further analysis. So Depth currently is available in production and is being used by other communities such as NCCWSC, and the IDMN project team is still in the process of testing Depth to make sure it's LCC ready and we're capturing all of the required information that they need to comply with the LCC national project standards. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a couple examples of how different communities are cataloging their records and taking advantage of the services that ScienceBase provides to display them out on other websites. So here's a screenshot of a project record for NCCWSC, and NCCWSC has really been leading the way in cataloging their project records, and we've learned a lot from their experience. They use ScienceBase to manage all of their project records, as well as catalog and archive their data products and publications. And then using the REST services, they're querying the ScienceBase JSON to display all of their project metadata out on their website in a manner that's they determined how they wanted to visualize their project records here. So they wanted to display the project study area, and then they determined what fields that from ScienceBase they wanted to display out on their website, some project metadata fields. And then down below, they are displaying their products, whether it be a publication or actually a data set. And then we are also working with the Desert LCC. So much like NCCWSC, they are already using ScienceBase to catalog their projects, as well as beginning to catalog and archive their products as well. Like NCCWSC, they're taking it a step further, and they are planning on displaying their cataloged projects on their Desert LCC website. The implementation is a little bit different than the NCCWSC implementation. We are converting it to HTML and embedding it in an iframe to display it on their website. And this was intended to be more of a simple solution for those who are not familiar with using JSON or XML. I think with that, I pass it back to Matt.
Thanks, Lei Ann. So to help individual LCCs for informing selection, adoption of project tracking software in the various LCCs, we had a fifth objective, a fifth marching order, and that was to investigate possible project catalog or project tracking systems which could be integrated into this overall framework, existing or in development. So, options for individual LCCs to use, to edit their master records, to feed into that national aggregate site that's on LCCnetwork.org and is going to be on ScienceBase in the near future. So then also, with this master record editing options that we want to provide or give out there, we also want to mention some other functions such as project tracking and so on. So let's go to the next slide. So supporting LCC software adoption. We reviewed a range of viable options for managing metadata and contributing to the National Project Catalog, and a lot of the initial work, or great initial work, was done again by Deanne and Jahai with the Simple National Project Review. They had great documentation, so we looked at that and for evaluating single software solutions, and then we created information. We expanded on that research, and we created some more information sheets to assist LCCs to make informed choices here. So these are the categories of options for LCCs to consider when reviewing these different options here. You could go with the existing system of the Simple National Project Catalog spreadsheet. You could continue with that from now or from last year until eternity, or you could roll out your own database management system, or CMS, also known as a content management system, or a website. You could adapt an existing database management system or a content management system, and then finally you could utilize ScienceBase in depth, what Lei Ann just went over. So when looking at these categories of options, think of your own LCC. You'll want to have some considerations, and these would be, what is your technical capacity of your LCC office? What are the project catalog features arranged in a way that you want to use in the future? Are you going to be able to access them in the manner you want? Does it have project tracking features? Does it when we're talking project tracking features, does it keep track of invoices or progress reports, or have some in-depth information on deliverables? And then finally, what type of web display component do you want to add in, if any? Do you want some custom reporting options to be able to really mine out some information? So there's many different considerations there. This is a table of those considerations in categories that has the listing of them on the left, and up on the top row we show the different software solutions, I guess you could say, that were evaluated. So as far as the considerations in categories, we have whether public web display was available with the solution, web data entry, technical expertise needed for the administration. Does it have project tracking functionality? Does it have customization options of data and reporting? Does it have automated national data integration? Does it have ongoing development? And then I think most importantly is the last line there when considering is the contact name. After you've gone and looked at some webinars on the various parts or done your research, talk to these people listed here and on any questions you may have, and maybe try to get a sample to get your hands in on the system. So again, up top, there's 5 ways to accomplish the project tracking and contribute to the National Project Catalog. And one other thing to keep in mind is, the last bullet there, LCCs have diverse needs, and no one software solution is best for all the LCCs. We also created some helpful information, kind of one-pager sheets that are available on the Confluence site. You can see under the project tracking team heading there. And then to come shortly, we're going to have a public website that's going to have this information on it also. So the next slides go over some highlights, not in great detail, but these are master record editing solutions, and all these options can contribute to the National LCC project catalog. And we'll go over Lei Ann's portion of depth once over here also. So this example you're seeing here is back to what Deanne talked about, the simple National Project Catalog spreadsheet, also referred to as the CSV file. So there you can see there's a link to it. You can get to it. Many of us are all familiar with it. It's an Excel-based application. It's a file that can be emailed anywhere. It's very low technical overhead. If you want to customize it, you can add a bunch of fields to it. And then you can also use this to upgrade it later to using other applications. If you want to export out to this function, this format, this file format, is kind of an intermediate step from your own database to the aggregate site. So you could use it as is, or you could use it as an intermediate transfer mechanism too. The next solution here, or option, was created by yours truly, but it was based off the Arctic Project Tracker system. And as far as the database design is very similar to it. And this has options of manual entry, or you can ingest the simple National Project Catalog spreadsheet. So if you wanted to download this application, you could go to the link. I know that's a lot of text to memorize right now, but we'll provide links later, or you could come back to the web recording. We also have a webinar on this subject, but you could actually download the software, run the automation routines to import the simple National Project Catalog spreadsheet, so you wouldn't have to enter in 2013 or before projects, and give it for a test drive. Then there is automated export to CSV that could be uploaded into or submitted to the National LCC project catalog. This is a Microsoft Access-based technology. It's low to moderate technical overhead. It has various project tracking features, including LCC strategic elements. You can customize it, as far as data entry forms, reports. It has automated ScienceBase export options to upload files to ScienceBase. It's very heavy on linking to ScienceBase elements. And then, as I mentioned before, there's batch uploads of lccproject.org data capabilities. So, Lei Ann, I forgot to change the slide there. So there's the slide on that. Next, ScienceBase using depth. There is ScienceBase using depth is what Lei Ann talked about quite a bit. It is a very robust web-based system. There's a very low technical overhead. It can integrate with existing ScienceBase elements such as RFP Manager, and then there's the project deliverable metadata applications. It has some limits on customizations, but it is a very robust application. There's some processes currently under evaluation in beta. You can see on the left there's manual data entry that is under evaluation for the LCCs, but there is batch upload options that's in beta, so people don't have to worry about doing as much duplicate entry if they want to get started. And then it will, when ScienceBase is the final aggregation solution, it will automatically, it says, have the data already in there. And then, as Lei Ann showed, there is display options for web components, whether you're doing the iframe technology to embed into your own CMS, or you want to utilize the web services. Next, the project tracker is the Arctic project tracking system. is a very robust project tracking specific software that the Arctic LCC developed. It's also being used by the Western Alaska LCC. It's based on JavaScript and PHP and with a Postgres database. It has a high technical overhead, is very, very robust project tracking features as far as tasks, funding invoices, contracting workflows. You have to customize it yourself, but it's free and open source. So if you have the technical capacity, that's something you want to check out. It is a browser-based multi-user editing component to it. You can see that, yes, simply the manual entry of the data, and then exports of CSV are available right now, and then JSON is planned in the future to feed. And we have links also to get more information, the project tracking site webpage, and then there's also YouTube videos on that great system. So finally, you can also roll out your own content management-based system. The example in the screenshot is showing the California LCC Climate Commons website that Jahai and Deanne are deeply involved with, and this is a great system that you could create a well, Jahai and Deanne have already done it. It's create a CSV output, or soon they're going to have a JSON output to transfer data through web services over to the National Project Catalog site. But if you did it yourself, if you wanted to go this route, you have to build it yourself. There is a high technical overhead also, and other LCCs are already using it, such as this kind of method, the Arctic, the South Atlantic, Gulf Coast Plains, the Ozarks, Upper Midwest, and Great Lakes LCCs. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Deanne.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, I'm going to wrap up the talk by summarizing our accomplishments in this effort and some of the lessons learned. We have, as you've heard, accomplished these things. We have created, where we took and upgraded a data standard and created the formats for exchange and are currently testing those. We've described interim and final architectures. We've prototyped the import of project catalog data into ScienceBase. We've developed a data entry form in ScienceBase depths, and all of those things are in testing status at this time. And we've worked pretty hard to outline recommendations for further work. And those are found in our roadmap document, our final report, which is going into the IDMN roadmap for integration document, and that will be available to everybody. You can see our draft in Confluence, and we realize Confluence isn't accessible to everyone, so we will, as I think Matt mentioned, put together a publicly accessible web page. We'll probably want to coordinate with Sean and others for the whole IDMN rollout of these products so everyone can get them. And we've learned some lessons. This is not as easy as it looks. Every time you try to standardize disparate data in a distributed architecture, you run into lots of challenges and things that you can't do simply. So there's more to do. This work has gotten us far along, but we're not done. And one of the main messages we really want the LCCs to know is that we need you to actively participate and consciously choose these tracking systems to manage your project metadata so that you can create that national standard catalog record and contribute it. And that will, as I mentioned, be coming up again. We're going to do another call for project records to update the national project catalog. And so you'll be hearing from us. And these efforts are now very tied together. The original Simple National Project Catalog is part of this prototyping effort, as you saw from the diagrams, and you need not worry that your project catalog records will go to the right place if you work with us to create that standard and contribute to the larger effort. So our recommendations, in general, we recommend that there be a follow-on effort and that we keep at it and create that production system that supports all of us in the LCCs to contribute more ongoing, not just once a year, but to update our project records in the National Project Catalog in a more timely manner and more automated manner, and make sure everyone's on board and doing it the way that they want to do, and it all ends up supporting us all so that we can see across the entire LCC network and answer all those questions at the national level that we want to answer. We have outlined a list of technical specifications for the future effort, and that's all found in our roadmap document. And those include, we think we should use ScienceBase as the production site and continue to work on that, adding the functionality that is now found at the Simple National Project Catalog and more things that we know that we want the system to do can be built there at ScienceBase. We think that there should be refinements to the standard, and we'd like to see the automation of tasks that are now done manually, like the moving of the data between the project tracking systems in the LCCs into the catalog and ingesting that data. Right now, we're moving that information through the process mostly under human power. It would be great if this was the push of a button someday. So for all of that information, you can look in our draft roadmap report, and it'll go into the final IDMN roadmap for integration product. So that's our talk today, and we would like to acknowledge these people, and we'd like to say thanks to Sean Sin for his leadership of the IDMN project overall, and thanks to the team, Josh Bradley, Emily Fort, Matt Heller, Sally Hall worked with us to prototype some work, Tim Kern, Shahai Stewart, and of course, me and Lei Ann. And also thanks to the National LCC for funding the IDMN project. And there are our email addresses, and you are welcome to communicate with us about any of this. And thank you for listening today. And I guess now we'll hand it back to Ashley to moderate any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Wow, it's exactly 12 noon.
Good timing. Yeah, so we can just take a couple questions. If you want to ask a question, you can type it in the chat box or use the raise hand icon that is located between the participant list and the chat box. If you do use the raise hand icon, I will call on you by name, and you just press *6 to take off the global mute, and also make sure your own mute is off your phone as well. We do have a question from Joel, and it says, for Lei Ann, what's your estimated time on testing of the depth for project record input? Or when do you think the testing of the depth for project record input will be completed?
I don't know. We are going to import the North Pacific LCC projects for the 2013. I'm hoping to get that done next week, and then I just need to sit down with Deanne and Shahai to make sure we have all of our data fields mapped correctly, and we're cataloging everything properly to comply with the standards. And then once we feel comfortable with that, I think we would welcome having other LCCs come on board and use depth. I would say, and Deanne, could you correct me if I'm wrong, a month? Would that be adequate or shorter?
I think that's a good estimate.
Coming up, so.
I think if, Joel, you would like to test it with us, that would be fine.
Yeah, so hopefully having it available by mid-September.
All right, thank you.
Joel says, fabulous, thank you. And he'll email.
Ashley, this is Sean. I wonder if I can make a few quick comments.
Absolutely.
Thank you to all the presenters, and I'm sorry that I neglected to give a little bit of detail about these final products. First of all, I did show a slide that indicates that all of these webinars will be on the LCC Network YouTube channel. If you want to search on YouTube to find that, just search under Landscape Network, all one word, and you'll find all of our presentations there. We will be having similar presentations at the Large Landscape Conservation Workshop that's coming up in October in Washington, D.C. And so if you want to join us during that special symposium, please do. And perhaps it would be a good time to start to get to know some of each other face-to-face if you're going to be there. And then finally, the roadmap to interoperability, the final product of the IDMN, is scheduled to be delivered by the end of the calendar year. Right now, we're in a pretty intense editing mode and working through, getting this stuff synthesized so that it's easily digestible. Thanks very much again to the presenters today.
And thank you to our participants as well.